honorable members of the Executive Council, honorable members of the legislature, leaders of the opposition, I bring you revolutionary greetings on this revolutionary occasion of debating a matter. Revolutionary in the sense that, considering the President's declaration, it requires complete change, not figures translate to an estimate 7.3 million women who have suffered, physical abuse and 2.1 million who have been subjected to sexual violence. These figures tells a horrific story of GBVF. The South African Medical Research Council, a woman is murdered by an intimate partner or family member every 3 hours. This grim reality underscores the urgent need to target interventions to address and prevent such violence. Whereas these campaigns, 16 Days of Activism was started in 1998 to highlight the societal and systematic causes of GBVF for no violence against women and children. Whereas these campaigns are coordinated and driven from national level at provincial level, they are spearheaded through the Office of the Premier, working in partnership with departments and municipalities, civil society and community stakeholders to drive coordination against GBVF. It is, however, unfortunate that despite the introduction of laws to address victimization of women and children, the prevalence of GBVF remains alarmingly high. This year, the campaign takes a pragmatic result-driven approach, prioritizing prevention, economic justice, and measurable impact. The Department of Social Development, led by MEC Danji, is embarking on 16 days of activism activities targeting Freedom Park in Rustenburg and Ward 22 Ramutsiri Muilwa as areas that have highest numbers of gender-based violence in the province. The department has conducted worship and prayer sessions at Freedom Park in Rustenburg on the 1st of December to seek divine intervention in prevention and addressing of scourge of gender-based violence. On the 28th of November 2025, the department hosted the Boys' Assembly as part of the strategy and campaign to educate boys from young age on how to treat girls and to see them as their sisters, not as tools to be treated anyhow. This event was a huge success, and we give gratitude to men and stakeholders who participate in ensuring that this event became successful. Plans are underway to engage with mining houses in collaboration in an effort to address the scourge of GBVF in our province. We call upon all parties and stakeholders to join hands with women and children to say no to gender-based violence. Honorable Chair of Chairs, these events are part of the implementation of Pillar 2 of the National Strategic Plan on GBVF 2030 and is in line with the presidential Outcome 3, all people in South Africa are free and safe. National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide emphasizes coordination efforts in prevention GBVF and rebuilding social cohesion. Honorable members, we are taking the campaign against GBVF to higher levels, and we call upon all stakeholders to partner with us as a department in efforts to eradicate this scourge. The theme for this year is clarion call for all of us to take the bull by its horn and say, not in our name, not our watch. It is time for each to reach one in all efforts to turn the tide in this war. Enough is enough. The wound of one is the wound of all. Thank you very much, Chair of Chairs.
MEC. The next speaker is Honorable Bokhaju, absent. Let me call Honorable Van Heisten.
No, sorry, Chair of Chairs. We made changes earlier. Yes.
Okay, speaker.
Thank you very much. Oh,
Honorable Dabampi. I was not informed.
No, thank you very much, COC, leaders of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the executive led by Premier Lazim Khosi, members of the House, Makhosi Arona Idilizwimpili, ki Khosi Tari Mautwe, le baagi ba bokoni bophirima dumelang. It is with a deep sense of duty, commitment, and revolutionary consciousness that I rise today on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters during this critical period of 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. Before I speak on the failures of the state, before I speak on the responsibilities of this House, and before I speak on the urgent actions required, I want to begin with an acknowledgement of the power, an acknowledgement of the courage and the leadership, but not from government, Premier, from the people of South Africa and of Bokoni Bophirima. I want to applaud all women, the activists and civil society organizations who have refused to accept silence in the face of a deadly war against women and children in this country. In particular, we applaud Women for Change, who stood firm and fearless in demanding accountability from the highest office in the land. Their activism has reached our communities in Mafikeng, in Rustenburg, in Madikwe, in Poch, and many other areas of our province where women have stood united in saying enough is enough. Honorable COC, the crisis of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa is not abstract. It is not theoretical, it is not seasonal, it is not a 16 days concern. It is a 365 days national emergency. Every year, thousands of women and children are killed, they are raped, they are abused, and others disappear. The statistics from SAPS are not mere numbers. They are mothers, they are daughters, they are sisters, they are wives, they are partners, they are learners, they are workers, and community members whose lives has been stolen. But even these statistics fail to capture the full horror because the majority of GBF cases go unreported, especially in rural areas of our province, such as in Khanyesa, in Mante, in Morukweng, in Slahole, in Tsidilamolomo, and Dunukana. Women have limited access to policing, social services, shelters, and functional justice systems. The Northwest Province remains one of the provinces where rural poverty, unemployment, and alcohol abuse and fragile household structures create conditions where violence continues unchecked. Women are afraid in their own homes, on their way to schools, at workplaces, and even inside police stations that are supposed to protect them. Honorable COC, we cannot continue to pretend that this is normal. It is not normal for South Africa to have one of the highest femicide rates in the world. It is not normal for women to live in fear because of men who claim to love them. It is not normal that children grow up witnessing violence as a daily occurrence, shaping their understanding of relationships and humanity. The EFF has consistently argued that GBVF is deeply linked to the material conditions of women. Patriarchy does not operate in isolation. It thrives in poverty, it thrives in unemployment, it thrives in landlessness, and it thrives in economic inequalities that continue to define the lives of Black women in our province and our country. A woman who does not have independent income, who does not have access to land, who does not have a stable home or basic services, is far more vulnerable to remaining in abusive relationships. Economic deprivation reinforces patriarchal powers. When women are economically marginalized, men are motivated to assert dominance, control, and violence. Therefore, the EFF believes that the fight against GBVF cannot be separated from the fight for economic emancipation. Only when women achieve real economic freedom will they be able to break the cycle of abuse that traps them. Furthermore, the justice system in South Africa continues to fail survivors. Police stations are often the first point of contact for women fleeing violence. Yet many victims experience secondary trauma at the hands of untrained, insensitive, or unresponsive officers. Investigators are delayed, perpetrators are granted bail despite posing clear dangers, and survivors have to return to the same communities where their abusers roam freely. Court processes take months, even years, forcing victims to repeatedly relieve their trauma. A justice system that delays justice is a justice system that denies it. The EFF has long stated that the justice must be swift and uncompromising towards those who inflict violence on women and children. The EFF strongly advocates that through the IGR, the Premier should ensure that the Department of Justice establishes the specialized gender-based violence courts across the province. These courts must be prioritized in areas with high case backlogs. They must also be extended to deep rural areas through mobile courts and satellite GBVF units to serve communities in Taung, to serve communities in Madibogo, in Makapanstad, in Revlo, and Ottosdal. These courts must be dedicated exclusively to cases involving domestic violence, rape, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, abuse of children, violation of protection orders, and femicide. A specialized court system will ensure that trained prosecutors, trauma-informed magistrates, dedicated investigators, and specialized court personnel handle GBVF cases with the urgency and sensitivity they require. These courts must prioritize faster turnaround times, reduce case backlogs, and guarantee a victim-centered approach. Survivors must not spend years waiting for justice while perpetrators continue to terrorize families and communities. The state response to GBVF cannot end at prosecution alone. Survivors need safe spaces, they need social support and long-term empowerment. In the Northwest, many districts lack shelters or have shelters that are poorly funded, understaffed, and unable to meet the needs of survivors. Women in remote areas may need to travel long distances to access to Tuzela care centers, and often there is no transport. The absence of safe houses means countless women return to abusive households simply because they have nowhere else to go. The EFF reaffirms its call for a public and accessible national register of GBVF offenders. Communities have a right to know if convicted perpetrators are living amongst them, especially in sectors that involve contact with children, women, patients, and vulnerable groups. Such transparency protects society and also serves as a deterrent to potential offenders. There should be vetting of all employees, as currently there are many repeat offenders who are teachers, who are nurses, and who are responsible for all the vulnerable groups. We call for genuine investment, not just rhetoric. Declaring a national disaster, Honorable Sambata, it should mean mobilizing national resources. The state must flood our communities with funded support and not rhetoric. We need fully resourced trauma counseling services in each and every clinic and hospital. We need a safe and dignified shelters in every area and centers where survivors can access integrated justice and care without being re-victimized by the system. The budget must follow the declaration, or the declaration is nothing but empty words which tomorrow will be turned into songs. Honorable CSOC, the EFF emphasizes that this fight requires a societal shift led by men. During these 16 days and every day after, we call especially men of the Northwest and South Africa to become agents of change. Turning our country around begins when men speak up, intervene, and refuse to tolerate violence in their homes or on their street, and challenges the harmful norms of patriarchy in their families, workplaces, and community. The EFF chooses justice. The EFF chooses transformation. The EFF chooses a South Africa and Northwest where women and children are safe. We are committed to comprehensive, sustained, and transformative fight against GBVF, and one that addresses economic conditions, strengthens institutions, confront patriarchy, and ensures swift justice. Ke a leboga.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Van Heesten. Nine minutes. Van Heesten.
Honourable COC, as we begin the 16 days of activism and no violence against women and children, we must remember that this campaign is not just an annual event. It is a solemn, ongoing demand for justice, safety and dignity for half of our society. Originating in the 1991s from activists in the Global South, these 16 days, from the 25th of November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, up until the 10th of December, the Human Rights Day, it serves as a powerful reminder that violence against women and children is not only a social ill, but a gross violation of human rights. Yet I ask, what meaning do 16 days have if the remaining 349 days offer no real protection? What changes if the government's actions stop when the calendar turns? We reflect today on the strength of women as pillars of our society. It is noteworthy, COC, that I'm the very first woman to stand at this podium today to speak on GBV, having been preceded by only male members. Helen Suzman's legacy reminds us that one voice, courageous and unwavering, can challenge oppression and change the course of history. Helen Suzman was much more than an anti-apartheid activist. She was a lone beacon in Parliament, challenging injustice, exposing inequality, and speaking truth to power when silence was the easier path. It is fitting that Helen Suzman is closely connected to the Democratic Alliance. The DA traces its roots to parties driven by those values: freedom, dignity, equality, and respect for human rights. Her life epitomes what we must strive for: fearless advocacy for those oppressed, a commitment to justice that never wavers, and the courage to hold government accountable. The fight against gender-based violence is a continuation of this very legacy. Women and children today need more than symbolism. They need tangible support and they need real protection. Currently, there are legal and social resources in place for victims of GBV: police services, courts, social workers, shelters, and counselling centres. Yet these resources are only effective if robustly supported and adequately funded. This is where the Department for Social Development's role becomes vital, and it has failed this province egregiously. Honourable Sambata, you stated in your debate that President Ramaphosa declared GBV to be a national crisis, and rightly so. During the past almost 30 years, GBV in SA and now in Northwest has grown to a national crisis under the ANC's leadership. Let me be blunt. The Northwest Department's failures to comply with the sector funding policy is criminal negligence and has directly contributed to this growing crisis. Organizations such as the South African Women's Federation, the SAVF, which have for over a century, over 100 years, they've rendered services. They have been trusted to be a refuge and a pillar of hope. They've been forced to close a children's home due to a lack of funding. About 6,000 people, that is abused children, battered women, and frail elderly persons, are being left without essential care. This is because of our Department of Social Development's failure to comply with the sector funding policy. Childline Northwest, a critical lifeline for abused and neglected children through its 24-hour emergency helpline, had to sell its only immovable property to stay afloat and faces shutting the helpline in totality by March next year. This is as a direct consequence of DSD's failure to implement the sector funding policy. It is estimated that in this year alone, 27,000 people will be affected by these funding failures by DSD. 27,000 people in need, completely abandoned. I say to this House, this is a scandal of moral proportions. How can we claim to fight violence against women and children when our department actively starves the very organizations that save lives and restore hope? How do we explain to a mother escaping domestic violence that shelters are closing their doors? Begin when this government stops paying lip service and starts prioritizing continuous year-round campaigns. The Democratic Alliance calls on Honourable MEC Dainki and the department not only to acknowledge this failure, but also to act decisively, to immediately restore funding to NPOs and to comply fully with the DSD sector funding policy. These organizations are our indispensable partners for protecting women and children. Without them, this province's fight against GBV is doomed to fail. Now, Honourable Sambata, I believe it is very fitting that you also started this very debate and that you are standing in for Honourable Daintjie today. Because as the MEC for Agriculture, your department should answer the call to action and implement programs to financially emancipate women in our rural communities so that they can escape situations of domestic violence. Violence against women and children is not a seasonal crime, it is a pandemic woven deeply into the fabric of our society. To fix this, we need courage, commitment, and resources delivered without fail. Now, in this current financial year in Northwest, so far, we have seen 20,729 children placed in foster care, 694 children placed in child and youth care centres, 845 reported cases of child abuse, 1,139 GBV victims accessing sheltering services. These are the matters the department could handle given their capacity, but it is not a true reflection of the need on the ground. Let us not allow this house to be a place of empty words. Let us be the voices of those who have been silenced by violence and neglect. Let us honor the legacy of Helen Suzman by standing boldly for justice, equality, and protection for all the women and for all the children in Northwest, every day, not only during 16 days. It is also noteworthy that, given the statistics that I've just read, our Department for Social Development in Northwest has created more EPWP jobs than they have allowed victims of GBV to access shelters in this province. Members, I ask you, how many more children's homes must be closed before your eyes are opened? How many more children should go unheard because of unfunded literal child hotlines so that they can escape abuse before you start opening your own mouth and using your words to fight for them? The time for excuses is over, and the time for action is right now, my fellow members. I thank you, COC.
Honorable Fanny Easton, thank you very much. Honorable Makakane. Honorable Makakane, we have 9 minutes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, COC. What is going on? Sorry, COC. I have a bit of a challenge here, technological challenge, but we are sorting it out quickly. Okay. Honorable COC, I concur with the assertion by Excellency President Matamela Ramaphosa that if a nation's character can be judged by how it treats women and children, then we
Can
are...
you use the mic, Honorable? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. If a nation's character can be judged by how it treats women and children, then we are failing desperately short. Our nation is bloodily grieving and in pain. Women and children are constantly murdered in our homes, villages and towns, at a rate that is higher than a country at war. Gender-based violence has gone beyond the definition of being a pandemic in our communities. On a daily, our country has been deeply traumatized